This video is brought to you by Aura. A few years ago, when I first saw Call Me By Your Name, I, like a lot of other unwell people, decided I was gonna watch whatever this guy, Timothée Chalamet, starred in for the rest of my life. Thankfully, he's a really gifted actor, that's why we love him. A gifted actor that makes good decisions, interesting decisions. Wonka is not a decision I expected. Wonka is technically the fifth Roald Dahl adaptation of 2023, and it acts as a prequel to the 1970s classic Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. It tells the backstory of how Willy Wonka became Willy Wonka, a story that, dare I say, not a ton of people were asking for. But there were two things that had me raising my eyebrows over this thing. The first being that Timothée Chalamet would be playing the titular chocolatier, and the second being it would be directed by Paul King, aka the Paddington guy. See, there's an art to the live-action family movie, and maybe it's because I don't watch that many of these movies these days, but it feels like a lost art. Between your Clifford the Big Red Dogs and Lyle Lyle Crocodiles, whenever we get a family film that happens to take a beloved IP and modernize it with goofy CGI, the results are less than ideal. But Mr. King here seems to know what he's doing. The Paddington movies are not only good, they're fucking great. So I had a lot of hope going into Wonka. And let's start with Timothée Chalamet, who a lot of people doubted after the first trailer. I'm embarrassed to say that I was one of those people, and he kind of surprised me in this movie. For someone who is delivering consistently moody performances, I felt he brought a lot of charisma and charm to the film. Of course, it was never going to be as good as Gene Wilder, but he pulls enough from that iconic performance to make it somewhat believable that they're the same person. I've said it before and I'll say it again, I'm a defender of Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, but I still think this is a lot better than whatever Johnny Depp was doing. I was honestly mostly surprised by his singing chops. Listen, it's no Lyle Lyle Crocodile, but it definitely sounded nice. The thing about Chalamet's performance is I didn't think he was troubled enough. Gene Wilder and honestly Johnny Depp both understood that Wonka had a weird, dark thing about him. You got the sense that he could snap at any moment. There's something mysterious about this character where you're never really supposed to understand who he really is. There are tiny glimpses of that here and there in this film, but I never saw this Willy Wonka as anything more than a chocolatier with a dream. Which for the sake of the story, that's fine, it works. But this troubled side to the character is what, in my opinion, made that original Willy Wonka such a unique and universally enjoyed film. That is something I have to give Tim Burton credit for, is that he did understand that there is a part of Willy Wonka that's a horror movie. I've always said it's a slasher movie. But anyway, in the grand scheme of things, I think Timmy still did a great job, and this is just proof how much range he has as an actor. I want to see him flex his comedic chops in a role with a bit more room to breathe, because he was really great here. While we're talking performances, I thought Hugh Grant was not great. I can't really blame Hugh Grant. I don't know how it must have been filming something so CGI heavy. I think the CGI of this Oompa Loompa just never worked for me. I might be wrong, but I'm pretty sure he said in interviews that he just didn't enjoy working on this, and you can kind of clearly tell when watching the movie.
Yeah, je joue le Oompa Loompa.
In general, I just never really dug his look as the Oompa Loompa. It was kind of disturbing. Almost as disturbing as finding your personal information on the dark web. I mean, have you ever Googled yourself and were shocked to see your personal information exposed on one of those public listing sites? I Googled myself once and there's a picture of Joe Biden, and I don't know why that exists. But I also found so much of my personal information, which really freaked me out, made me feel extremely violated. But that's why I'm excited to partner with today's sponsor, Aura. See, data brokers are making a lot of money selling your information to robocallers, spammers, and others who want to learn more about you, like where you live. And Aura can identify data brokers exposing your info and submit opt-out requests on your behalf. See, brokers are legally required to remove your info if you ask them to, but they make it super hard to make that happen, so let Aura handle it for you. Aura also does a lot more to protect you and your family from online threats you can't see. It's really easy to set up so you don't have to download several different apps to get things like parental controls, antivirus, VPN, password management, identity theft insurance, and more. You get everything at one affordable price, which truly, that's a huge perk. Let Aura do the hard work of keeping you safe online so you can focus on other tasks with peace of mind. You can either let people continue to exploit and profit off your private information, or you can go to aura.com/Karsten to start your 2-week free trial, also linked below in the description. The rest of the cast, though, pretty much no complaints at all. Cal Elaine as Noodle was so incredible. She and Timothy had really adorable chemistry. Olivia Colman is amazing as always. Same goes for Keegan-Michael Key. Patterson Joseph was a delight. I loved his voice. Everyone in this movie seemed like they were just having a blast, and I love watching movies where people are clearly having a good time, except for Hugh Grant. To see a musical with this much energy is just such a treat. So yeah, let's talk about the musical aspects of it. I Loved it. Usually with musicals, the actual music scenes can be so hit or miss. They either bring the momentum of the film to a grinding halt, or they end up being the best scenes in the entire film. In Wonka, I couldn't wait for the next musical number. King really takes full advantage of the budget here. There's some fun gag happening in almost every shot of these musical numbers. The choreography isn't the most special thing in the world, but it's still fun. Besides, I don't even think they needed to do that much with the choreography. The editing and sound design of the world is so on beat with the songs that the filmmaking itself almost feels like it's already dancing, which I thought was a really cool aspect. The songs themselves have tons of clever wordplay that always made me smile. There are even some songs in here like Wonka and Noodle's Big Number Not a Chance that had me tearing up. I can't sit here and lie to you, I shed a tear or two at the Wonka movie. I'm a sensitive guy these days. I also think the film is genuinely funny at times. I say genuinely because usually with kids movies I'm so used to, well, either kids humor or fingernail on chalkboard self-aware adult humor, but Wonka has some really solid punchlines and even some slapstick here and there that I just couldn't not laugh at. I mean, you have Olivia Colman and Rowan Atkinson in the film, there's gonna be at least a few hits. I regret to inform you though that that's where the exceptional stuff ends. I don't think Wonka is the best thing in the world, and I think it certainly has some flaws. Weirdly, it feels more fitting to compare this to Paddington than any of the other Wonka movies. Because of its whole prequel thing, Wonka cheats its way out of the scrutiny that Tim Burton's version went through. It's its own thing, so you can't really compare it to a Willy Wonka movie. And I think the fact that it stands so far away from those films is in itself something that holds this back for me. At times I do get the feeling watching this that Willy Wonka the character was just plugged into a Paddington movie. And listen, to many that sounds like a dream come true, and clearly it didn't completely fail, but I do think this puts the film in a sort of weird in-between stage. It's not full Paul King whimsy, and it certainly isn't full Willy Wonka goofiness. I wish this was one of those cases where I can say in doing this it becomes a new thing entirely that I can't really compare to anything else, but instead it really just feels at times like a better Lyle Lyle Crocodile. Which is good, that doesn't mean it's a bad movie at all. I would say the only obvious flaw about this movie, in my opinion, are some of the VFX. I know this film is so CGI heavy because King had a lot of good ideas, many of which had to be done with CGI to be done at all, but man, does it look a little ridiculous some of the time. The final factory reveal scene specifically was kind of a hot mess to look at, in my opinion. And maybe that's why I felt the lack of whimsy. Because Paddington is by design just a bear on an adventure, any situation he finds himself in is going to be whimsical. But Wonka feels like an uphill battle of trying to take iconic Wonka magic and modernizing it in a way that wows people today, which will require just a lot of extra work, a lot of CGI, a lot of loud, bright, whatever VFX. And it looks good. A lot of how King presents these ideas is witty and hard not to smile at. One detail I loved was the giant ladder Wonka gets on at one point, but it's also caked up in CGI to a point where the magic of Wonka falls a little flat. In general, I wish this had more color. No Wonka movie should be this gray and brown and muddy. But looking past all that, I still came away enjoying this. I rewatched the Super Mario Bros. Movie the other night, and it had me feeling sort of sad about the current state of movies for children. If the most successful kids movie of the year is essentially just a bunch of Easter eggs and references with barely any original or interesting choices, what hope can someone really have for the future of cinema if that's what the kids are into? As I mentioned, there is an art to making a film for all ages. It's really easy to mess up and really hard to get right. It's why the Paddington films are such a breath of fresh air to many people, which is why when I see Wonka, it's nice to have something made by someone who clearly cares and put some effort into what he was doing. That's always a positive in my book, even if the film isn't completely perfect. And that's what I gotta say. Thanks for watching. Go watch Wonka and form your own opinion, and I'll see you in the next one.